Hello, I would like to show you some reminders and just basically a walkthrough of creating a test in Schoolnet. I know the Schoolnet look has changed a little bit, so you might see whenever you log in that it appears a little different, but this is some basic knowledge or steps in how to create a Schoolnet test for those of you who are not um, very familiar with that. So first of all, you get into Schoolnet obviously through NC Ed Cloud. So once you log in, there are a few different ways to do this, but I'm going to show you an express way. So here, if you scroll along the left side, you'll see assessments, and the drop down says you can find an assessment here. So if you go to find assessment, this is when you can go here and you can type sixth grade science. And this is what, if you click here, let's see here, we're going to choose sixth grade. We're going to look at science. And let's see here. Oh, life and physical science. And you can look back a couple of years maybe to try to find any sixth grade science tests. So automatically you see various different tests that you would like to use. These are ones that have been used in the past. For instance, I'm just gonna, let's see here. This is an L1 test. So if you clicked on the L1 test, you can, first of all, make a copy of the test and have your own copy. So I'm going to make my copy and generate. And then you can look at the actual questions from that test, your copy, and determine if you like the questions or not, if you'd like to replace them or not. So when this pops up, these are all the questions. It says there's 20 items on this test. And if you click here on item details, in just a second, it's going to populate and it's going to show you the different test questions. Sometimes this takes a second. Okay, so you can go through and read these questions and see if you like them or not. So let's say number 1 sounds like a good question. 2, 3, it's still generating the picture. Let's see, 3 is there. Let's say number 4 we don't like. So you can click over here and replace it. When you replace, it's going to take you back to the bank of items from L1, or you can remove it altogether. You can even go in and edit it, and you could change the wording of the question or maybe change some of the answer choices. That's something that you feel like is better suited for your students. So that's how you actually can find a test. Now I'm going to show you how to create your own test. So back over here again, I'm going to go to create and I'm going to choose express. So I'm going to call this, I'm just going to call it science for the sake of, and let's do life and physical sciences. I'm going to say 7th grade, and you have to pick which document to pull from, so I'm going to pick science. So here for the test category, if you choose district benchmark, that means anyone in the district is going to have access to this test. This school, anyone in your school. Shared classroom means you can share it with other teachers. Other teachers could use your code, or this is just your classroom itself. I usually like to do the shared classroom so other teachers can use it too. So we can share. There are other settings you can peruse through if you'd like, but I'm going to go ahead and click Select Standards. So I'm looking, let's say I want, just going to look for, let's see here. I like these 4. So I'm looking at L1. So I'm going to click those 4. You can spread them out as much as you want and go here. And it tells you how many test items they have for L1.1, L1.2, L1.3, and L1.4. And it tells you those topics. Now, if you wanted to look at more filters, if you click on advanced filters, you can choose the only item types that you would like. So if you only want multiple choice, If you only wanted gridded response, so maybe you want to practice your math teacher and you want to practice some gridded response questions, you could use those. I'm going to click multiple choice for now. You can do the difficulty levels, passage types if you're in the literary in English. Here you can choose what language you want to print it in. So obviously, most of us, it would be most helpful to have in English. This might be a resource that you could do some of yours in Spanish for those EL students. So for now, I'm going to choose English. And I have to click on apply filters here for it to actually filter out those questions that I want. So now these are the number of questions that I have to choose from, and I want this to be a, let's say 20 point or 20 question test. So I want them to evenly be distributed, 5 from each. So I'm going to build the test. So it's going to go in and randomly choose 5 questions from each of those subjects or each of those topics from my standard course of study. Now, keep in mind, some of these questions are not the best, but you can look at each one and determine if you like it or not, like we looked at before. And these are as close as we can get to those end of grade and end of course tests. So we like to use these as much as possible. So again, here are 20 questions. If I click on item details, I can scroll through. Again, it's going to take a second. I do want to show you this while this is populating. I'm not going to do this feature on this test because it does take a little while and I don't want to take that time. But when you're ready for the test and you're getting ready to finalize it, before you do, if you want your students to be able to have text to speech so the questions are read aloud to those who need it, who have that accommodation, you would click here to generate text to speech. Let's see if my questions are loading yet. Give it a little more time. Item preview generation is in progress. Okay. This must be thinking really hard. I'm going to click off of it and click back, see if that helps. It usually doesn't take this long. Let's refresh and see what happens. Hopefully I won't lose everything. Okay, and here I go to item details. Okay, so sorry about that. I hope I didn't lose anybody. So again, here are the questions. You would read through and see what you like. If you like the questions, remember your first 5 were from L11. So we go through and let's say I do not like question number 6. So I'm going to show you how this looks. Keep in mind that this is from L1.2. So I'm going to replace. So when I go over here, I'm back to those 184 items from L1.2. So if this is not the right standard, if it pulled from a different standard, that's when you would go here and choose that right standard. But you can even search with a word. So let's say I'm trying to find a question about photosynthesis. I don't know if it's going to be in here or not, but we'll see. Oh, we got lucky. Okay, so there are 16 items here, so I can go through and see which one I like for photosynthesis. Oh, I like this pretty good with the graphic, with the Venn diagram. So I want to say yes to this one. I like this one, so I'm going to click on add. So now is the time where I would go through and look at all the other questions again and make sure that all the questions I like and they're good and aligned, good problems. And let's pretend like we've went through all those now. So let's say I've gone through them all and I'm ready to, here's when I would generate text to speech. So I'm not going to do that now for sake of time. Now, keep in mind, if you're wanting to look at this test more in depth before you finalize it, because once we hit this finalize and schedule, there's nothing else we can do to it. Here's where you could actually download a PDF of it and print it or save it or share it with your PLC members to talk about the questions before you gave it. Here's where you do your answer key. But let's say we're ready for this. We think it's a good test. We're going to finalize it. Click OK. That just told me that I can't do anything with it once it's finalized. Now I'm going to schedule it. So I'm going to pick the days that I want this available. Let's say I want it available starting October 4th. And I'm going to give it a couple of weeks because we might have some out. I'm going to scroll down. Here are some different options that you might want to look at as far as grading and things go. I'm going to just scroll down to the next important part. That's your online passcode. Now it's going to create and generate a strange passcode for you, but if you want to try to do your own, you could say, label this one Cox 7L dot or L1. I don't know that it'll do a dot. L1. Here's important too. Allow educators to link the test to Canvas. This means that whenever you get this test made, you can go into Canvas and create an assignment using an external tool, and Schoolnet is one of those external tools. So the test would be directly in Canvas and the grade would go directly in Canvas as well. So you definitely want to check that off. There are other things that you can look at, but that's my most important that I usually look at. Save and publish. It says it's not assigned. That is okay. You do not have to assign it. You can just give the students the code. So I'm going to click OK. Sometimes your code will have already been used, so it'll ask you to come up with a different code, but looks like this one worked. So these are your important numbers or things to know. This is your test ID number. I would write that down as soon as I get the test. I usually like to go ahead and do the PDF and print it out and write this on the test on the front for my purpose and my use. This is where if you're looking for the test again, you can search by that ID number. Also, you definitely want this online passcode. So students, when they go into Schoolnet and they're logging in and ask them for their passcode to take a test, this is what they would key in to take this test, Cox 7L1. So again, I hope this helped with making some assessments in Schoolnet. I do encourage you to use these as much as possible. Share, reach out to a curriculum coach if you would like for someone to create you a quiz or a test in Schoolnet, and we'd be glad to help you out with that also. Thanks a lot.